Welcome to Don't Know Much About Football,
the podcast where football meets finance and foreign policy.
And the commentary comes with culture. With your co-hosts, Carlo Marcello,
Sarah Hamilton,
and Ian Stoner.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Don't Know Much About Football. We're here for another multi-person session, a roundtable conversation on the state of the Premier League and the season so far. We're in week 31 and there is a lot of interesting stuff to talk about, I am sure. Really glad to have Paul here, a Leeds fan, as you'll know if you've seen our recent episodes, and Tristan, a Gunner, an Arsenal fan. I don't know what he's going to talk about today. There's not much to say about Arsenal, but glad to have you back, an old friend of the pod for a long time. So thanks for joining.
Yeah, great to be back. And lots happened since we last had the round table, where I was a very nervous Leeds United fan at the time. And I'm still a bit nervous, but a lot less nervous than I was.
And I see you're wearing your green shirt, so I've got a pint of Guinness, or what passes for a pint when it comes from a can. So I'm going to enjoy that since it's St. Patrick's Day week, at least. It's my first time this week. Tristan, how are things?
Fine. My job here on the pod, I guess, is to not jinx the upcoming quad, right? But otherwise, that's it. I don't have green. I don't own anything in green, so I guess I'm going to end up getting pinched when I finally get the dog outside.
That's all good. So why don't we just start with where we are? Paul, do you want to give us a sense of, your view of the whole season? We can get to Leeds in a minute, but
yeah,
maybe start there.
Well, it's a pretty Leeds-centered view. I mean, I think the last time we talked, I think relegation wasn't as clear. The picture wasn't as clear at that time. We were going through a lean spell. I was pretty pessimistic. I think our manager was ready to get fired. But it seems like the title's decided now. Most of the European spots. Who'd have thought Man United were going to be on the verge of Champions League back then? That's been a big surprise. I think we called out managers we thought were at risk at the time. I think I said Arne Slot. That's probably further been cemented. A lot of unhappy Liverpool fans around right now. News this week is that Chelsea kind of small slap on the wrist and not really getting punished because they got the cash to pay that fine, no problem, despite the cheating. All the points subtracted from other teams, but they get a small cash fine. What else? A lot of sides comfortable right now in the middle of the table.
Yeah, I think there's just a glut of teams who are kind of very close together. It's really hard to if you were just to look at the season right now, it would look like a few teams at the top had been there the whole time. And if you've been asleep for a number of years, you might not be too surprised if you looked at the top of the table, depending on which vintage of Man City you remember. If you woke up from 20 years ago versus 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, and then. Yeah, we'll get to some of the details on where Leeds are. But some interesting action there with West Ham currently in relegation risk. So it's been an interesting season. Tristan, how do you feel? What's your take on the season been?
It has not been a comfortable season. And the whole year, thinking like league wide, it feels weird and strange where there's been like a roller coaster across the board, though at the same time, like Arsenal's been on top for Lord knows how long, and it's never felt comfortable. It seemed like for a while it was Liverpool, right? At the beginning of the season, you guys had won the league. And I was
for the first 6 weeks, it seemed like, we got this. We're just some new players, but basically, version 2 of the champion squad, and from there it's been
Yeah,
Oh,
and then we
it's
just
horrible.
keep waiting for City to turn things on. It doesn't look like they're going to turn things on, and then they buy Semenyo and Gahey in January, and you're like, okay, well, if ever it was going to get turned on, this is it. Then Holland, I guess, decides to go. I heard on a competitor podcast the other day, he's gone on like 5 goals this calendar year, and then last 3 months of last calendar year, he was at like 38 goals for club and country or something like that. So if you would ask me this question 6 months ago, I would have thought it was like Arsenal was one of the favorites for the season. If we were going to lose it, it would have been because Holland went on a Salah-esque run for the rest of this year, and who can shut the door on that possibility? So it's never felt good. If you had told me, Arsenal is going to be up in first place for 37 of 38 weeks, I would have thought it would have been a much more fun season than this one has turned out to be.
So let me ask you both a question, because we have to talk about Arsenal to some degree, as much as everybody but Gunners want to do. Has Arsenal won the league, or has everyone just kind of tripped over their shoelaces on especially the top few? I don't have an opinion, partly because I've just started a new job and I've been traveling, and I haven't had the bandwidth to stay focused, and frankly, I've been a bit disenchanted and discouraged by Liverpool. So I've been, I'm going through one of slumps in my own kind of how much football I'm watching. But let's start with Tristan. What's your thought as a Gunner? Are they winning because they deserve to, or are they, or is it somewhere in the middle, or is it, City's Haaland just hasn't delivered?
Yeah. Well, I would have said the same thing about Liverpool last year, where I felt like Arsenal had a string of like 4-month injuries from our stars all throughout last year. And so it felt like we were like limping through the year. And then City had their worst year in 20 years or whatever. Man U was Man U, Chelsea was Chelsea. Like it seemed like last year it was going to be Liverpool versus Arsenal, and Arsenal never got out of the training room, which is not to take away from Liverpool being the best team at the end of 38 weeks last year. Like, I think they're deserving champions, even though Arsenal's injury problems are injury problems, right? You can only beat the teams that show up in front of you. And it feel kind of like this is a similar year where like the first 3 months or so, Arsenal had a dominant defense, and then lately we have been less dominant. Our offense has never really gotten going. So, Liverpool's an imperfect team before this latest run that had Ian apparently stop watching. City has been imperfect. Man U apparently only needed Carrick to get the job for them to look like they could start winning some games, which still surprises me. So I don't know. Do they deserve to be at the top of the table? Yes. Is this a vintage league right now? I think that's a different conversation. But it's not like, I don't know. Nobody's beat them. Do I think we have it locked up? No, of course not. I think we could still lose it. And I won't feel comfortable one way or the other until after we play City at the Etihad. I think that's going to be the determining fixture. Is it hard to believe that Arsenal would drop points from here on out? I think not. So I'm not planning or bought my tickets for the parade yet. Let's put it that way.
Okay, fair enough. But as you say, you can only play the teams that show up in front of you. So it's on everyone else then to show up with a stronger team if they want to challenge.
Yeah. I mean, coming into the year, I thought we had a pretty deep squad, and then as it turns out, we've needed all of that depth because injuries still happen.
Well, but that happens to everybody, right? And what it means is, if you've got the depth and the talent, then you have what it takes to succeed in the sort of at the level of competition that there is in the Premier League. It may not always look. If you look at the pack of between, let's just take Brentford at 7 down to Crystal Palace at 14th, you've got 6 points, and you could even drop out Brentford and Everton, and you've only got 3 points between 9th and 14th. So the very dense, heavy middle core there. None of those teams are bad.
Yeah, even at the bottom, I think there's only two bad teams in the league right now. Burnley has been kind of under. Burnley has not had a great year. They haven't looked great most of the year. Spurs are a better team than they are, but for the last couple of months, they have just like quit or something.
So are you saying then that Burnley and Spurs is like they're bad teams, and the other teams that are at the bottom have been unlucky in their matches, or
kind of? I mean, Wolves have taken points off of was it Liverpool and Arsenal recently? West Ham, I think Nuno's finally got them at least playing defense. Forest is kind of like Spurs, where if you look at that roster, they seem like they'd be better than 18th place or wherever they are, 17th place. So I'm excited about that match for the weekend, Spurs versus Forest. But if you put it this way, if Arsenal were playing any of the 19 teams tomorrow, who would I feel confident that we would be beating? It's only Burnley and Spurs. Everybody else, I could see the story where they could take points.
What about what you did to Leeds this year?
You're
We're
our
the team you want to play for whatever reason.
That's true.
I mean, seriously, we have been competitive at least in every single match this season. The only two teams you talk about the attack and not having to get attacked, you guys destroyed us.
Yeah,
so.
and that's the only team we've put like 4 or 5 goals past twice.
Right.
That's it.
Yep.
So anyway, it's a tough week.
Maybe that's a good segue then. I mean, so Paul, let's talk about. We're going to talk about Leeds, but let's get your reaction to what Tristan was saying about the league in general and about Arsenal. More specific.
Yeah, I think the league in general, the football sucks. There's less, time in play with the ball. It's all about set pieces. Everyone's got set pieces, coaches, it's become an art form. It's, the latest version of Moneyball, right? Is like, let's get set pieces right because that's what's going to win games. Let's waste time. Let's sneak yards up the line. And so credit to Arsenal. I think they deserve to be top of the league because they're better at that than anybody else right now. But it's not the football I want to watch.
Yeah, and as I think about watching Liverpool earlier in the season when I was able to catch more games live, the complaint was, we need to do better in set pieces, and if we could just get that right, we'd get the points we need. Which maybe is fair enough, but maybe that doesn't make for as much fun as a fan in general, and
doesn't.
It's a different type of football than historically we're used to in this league. So I think there's a tension there. You need some of it. You need to actually be able to use them effectively. But if it just becomes a set piece, then it's not. It's like golf, and you're just trying to get the ball from a certain place to a pin 200 yards away. In that analogy,
it's not. It's not the beautiful game, unfortunately. But that's where we are right now, and credit to Arsenal for figuring it out better than anybody else. I think Man City, the Haaland thing's a big deal. Obviously, he wants to play for Leeds. He always has done. He's a Leeds fan. He was born in Leeds. So I think he's just sulking until he gets his transfer.
That must be it. To get into more specifics on Leeds, tell us, what's it been like for you, the highs and the lows, as you said at the beginning.
And how do we feel about it?
I mean, you're close to the bottom. Until I've heard you speak, my feeling has been Leeds is doing well and deserves to be up in the Premier. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, we do. We changed formation shortly after that last. No one thought that Farke had the tactical nous ever to change the plan he had, and he was always playing that 4-4-2. But he did. He seems to have now figured out how to get substitutes on at the right time to change a game as well, and change mid-game, change tactics mid-game. It's dipped off recently, but it was like signing a new player with Aronson, which hopefully is going to be good for the US in the World Cup. He was the most hated man in Leeds. And all of a sudden, he started scoring goals and providing. I think whatever it was, instead of turning and going back up the pitch, he decided to turn the other way and try and attack and get some confidence from somewhere. So we rode that out. We had Calvert-Lewin playing like a good old-fashioned striker, and we were getting the ball in the box. And, we played really well. We've been, like I said, we've been competitive in every game. But, it's typical Leeds. We've had, the Man City game, and one of our players got strangled in the box, and VAR didn't give it for some reason. There was a cast iron handball last week. VAR, we didn't get it. We had a guy sent off. We would probably won that game. Everyone's like talking how great Leeds are, and they kind of feel sorry for us. I don't like that. I want to be the dirty Leeds everybody hates because we're winning, not because we're merely winning or drawing games. So yeah, I think we've had some bad luck, but you look at our fixtures, I think we're going to be okay. I think our percentage of going down is very low.
Yeah, you've got
Burnley at home, Wolves at home, West Ham away. We got Brentford at home. We're always good under the lights. Tomorrow night, hopefully we get 3 points there, and the squad's fairly fit. So still feeling pretty optimistic. Feel like it's been a great season. It'd be sad for me and for the Premier League if Leeds go down from here.
sad for the North. Yeah, you've got, as you say, the clubs below you are half of the clubs you have to play for the rest of the season. So you didn't mention Spurs, but Spurs at home might be tougher. But you've got a really good chance there, and they're the teams you have to beat in order to stay up. So even draws,
Yeah.
if you drew in one or two of those, it might be fine.
Yeah, it looked like they were going to bring Harry Redknapp in a couple of games ago, but then they had that result in Europe and then managed to scrape a draw. So I think they screwed themselves by keeping the manager they've got, but we'll see. But that's a big game against Forest this weekend because someone's going to lose, either not gain points or lose points.
Mm-hmm.
I had heard that Leeds are only 1 point, 2 points above Spurs, and was shocked that it was that close because I had always Leeds looks good every time I watch them, so I would have anticipated you guys to be a couple spots up higher than it turns out to be.
Yeah. And I feel literally I think we've had more, lost games when we've been ahead or drawn games when we've been ahead than pretty much anybody. I think, we could easily be, 12, 15 points better off, but we're not. So we're still strapping.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. You've won 7, drawn 11. And so it wouldn't take much for you to be turning some of those draws into 3 points.
No. And then our goal differential's better than everybody apart, quite significantly better than the bottom teams. So if it came down to us having the same points, we'd probably be in good shape. And I mean, if it hadn't been for the 2 Arsenal games, we'd be -2 instead of -11.
There you go.
Yep.
You put it that way. All right. So why don't we start looking ahead? We've done a good kind of round the houses on your clubs and the season overall. We're approaching the end. I don't think we're going to see that much difference at the top or the bottom of the league.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's pretty clear where we're heading. What do you think has to change, for Leeds? Does Arsenal just have to kind of keep doing what it's doing? And are there other things that you're kind of thinking about now as we start to imagine summer holidays and then, whatever changes might be happening in the transfer season for your clubs or for the other ones that you're thinking about?
Well, we get some big contracts off the book this summer. We got Melier, who's one of our highest paid players, who's a disaster for us last year. And, with the financial rules the way they are, your first season up, you're so limited on what you can do. And you talk about having the squad to cope with the big season, with the full season and compete. There are only 5 or 6 teams that can afford to do that. But each year you stay, you get a bit, you get more latitude. We got the new stadium coming. Hopefully we can spend some money. We'll have more money to spend and consolidate and keep going so we can, in a few years, get to that level where we can properly compete to win.
And on the
Makes
Arsenal
sense.
end,
And it did,
sorry, go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Ian.
Well, I was going to ask Paul just a follow-up question, and Tristan, do you have to drop at the end of the hour, or can you
No,
stick
no, I'm
around for a
fine.
bit?
I'm good.
Okay, cool. Then we'll continue, and as others join, we'll evolve the discussion. But Paul, on the Leeds front, first year back in the Premier League where you belong, uh, you've made, I think, more progress as a club than your position currently might imply. Again, if you just woke up now and looked at the table, you wouldn't really understand what's going on. To you, is this kind of like the foundation, and with the manager and the enough of the team that you
Yeah.
have, you're ready for maybe greater heights next year?
Yeah, I think we are. I mean, we got the financial base because we got, the strong fan base. We got a new stadium coming. Yeah, it was just this year, it was just be 17th or better, and that's the success, big success. And yeah, as long as
Is
that's still the case, then I think we're in good shape.
is there chatter about keeping Farka around or replacing him, or any of the
No, I
current
think
standing
he'll.
seen as him? You think he's done well?
Yeah, no, everybody's happy with him now. He's very popular. I think he's got the dressing room, and seems to have proven himself as a tactician. So as long as he gets the financial backing, I think we're in good shape.
Yeah, it's probably a good place to be because, as you said, the job was to stay 17 or above.
Hmm.
Job done, in theory, touch wood, and then anything from here is progress.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
know, the Klopp, not Klopp, Freudian slip. The slot situation, first you're in, domination,
yeah,
all the glory. It's hard. You cannot almost
yeah,
not fail. Like it's almost impossible not to fail from there because you just can't
yeah,
sustain that. It doesn't take much, as we've seen, for things to go sideways. Sometimes intangibly, and it's unclear what's going on. So that's a good
yeah.
thing.
It's like,
Marco.
I live in Kansas City. We've been spoiled for a few years now with our football team, and it's kind of similar. The fan base, they expect, they're spoiled rotten, and the minute something's not perfect, they forget that, it's a fickle world, sports, and no one has a entitlement to success forever. I think, the little bits that I've seen, that Liverpool fans are a lot unhappier than Leeds fans right now, despite where they are in the table.
Yeah, I mean, fifth place at the moment, potentially could go up to fourth, um, potentially third, but that's probably it. Uh, a bit of a fall from grace after some good recent years, but not
And
terrible. I don't think,
you're still
nobody's
in the
getting their
Champions
violins
League
out
too.
across. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
It seems like the fans' biggest frustration at Liverpool is, from what I hear when I hear these fans shouting and screaming after the game, it's the style of the football. They want to play a Liverpool style football. They want to be attacking. They want to go forward. They want to, and Slot, that's not Slot's plan. Maybe Slot's trying to do what he needs to do, which is play Arsenal football and set piece football, and because that's probably what it takes these days. But the fans certainly don't seem happy with that.
probably still a bit addicted to gegenpressing and the previous management. So we'll see how it goes next year. Um, Tristan, same question from 5 minutes ago to you on the next season and summer
Yeah. So
transitions.
haven't even really looked at it because it's been like 1 week in front of the other kind of thing. So this weekend is the Carabao Cup final with City, a trophy I've generally not cared too much about, but you want to win a
Silverware,
final while you're
silverware.
in it. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. And then the like the FA Cup, we've gotten a really soft draw, and then the Champions League, we got some draw charity there as well. So it seems like I have a game every 3 games or every 3 days for now until the next, to the end of May or something. Um, and we have the deep roster that came in. Really, there's some players that used to start for us that have been injured off and on for the last couple of years that are probably going to get sold. So that's like Gabriel Jesus, they probably want to get rid of. He's got one more year on his contract, and he's the second or third highest paid player. So I imagine they want that paycheck gone. Ben White is probably going to go somewhere where he can play more. But that's really it in terms of like roster shifting for
it's sort
next
of
year.
housekeeping, a bit of tidying up more than transformation or surgery required.
Yeah, I mean, Arteta loves buying left backs, so we're probably going to buy a left back because we do every summer. We start the year with 6 or 7 left backs, and we end the year with one when the other 6 get injured. That's been like 2 or 3 years in a row now. But it'll be stuff like that. I imagine somebody's going to want to leave. Left wing is the place where we don't have. It's been the weak spot of our attack for like 2-3 years. Martinelli is probably not going to get extended. So then do you sell him or move on? Same with Trossard, who's a couple of years older. Those guys aren't getting extensions.
It's nice. It's nice to see Arsenal bringing through some young British players. How do you feel about your 16-year-old?
Max Dowman. So I have been, he's been talked about in the fan base for a couple of years, right? So when he was 14 is when he first started showing up on the fan blogs and stuff. And I have been pumping the brakes on all of it. And I did the same with Ethan Nwaneri a couple of years ago, just to protect the kids, right? They're still kids. Like, I don't want them to be dealing with all the stuff that professional athletes have to deal with. I saw Dowman at the summer tours that they do. He looked like a grown man running circles around boys. He did that when he was 15, 16. And you're just like, yeah, because he just turned 16, right? Like 2 months ago, he turned 16.
Yeah.
And
youngest goal scorer in the Premiership ever, right?
Yeah. It's incredible seeing him do what he's doing. And, again, knock on wood that he keeps his head screwed on tight.
Yeah.
He is something else.
In England, if you're good. Yeah, I was saying in the UK, if you're good enough, you're old enough. But it doesn't generally apply in American sports because you have the whole college system and, there isn't that opportunity for a 16-year-old to play professional sports, which is kind of a different cultural phenomenon. It's exciting.
Yeah. But he and Ethan and Miles, we had two 18-year-olds that played a lot last year. They all showed up like just built like freaking linebackers. Where Ethan and Miles are both taller. Miles, I think, is Max. Ethan and Max are tall. Miles is a little shorter, but man, they show up, and it has been something watching them. And part of with Max, I guess, is like just the bravado of being a 16, where he shoots, attacks, and carries himself like he's invincible. Which you can do when you are invincible at 16, I guess, in a way that a 19, 20-year-old has failed a couple of times. So they, or they're in their head more.
Cockiness or kind of, like the extra confidence.
Yeah,
is important in order to be able to just stand in front of 40, 50,000, 70,000 people.
Yeah, across from players who I'm sure you had posters of on your wall, with your opponents and whatnot. Hey, it's a seagull.
Yeah. So, Jason, welcome. We're just been having a conversation about the Gunners and Leeds, and glad to have you here now. Let me just do a little bit of housekeeping here, make sure we can hear you well. We can always edit this bit out, but so tell us just something so we can hear you speak, and we'll see how it sounds.
Good old Sussex by the sea. Now is the time for marching. Come, let our hearts begin. Hark the merry bugles, marching on the way.
We're going to keep that in. We're not going to.
Wow, this show's cultural too.
Yes. Great. So, Jason, I'm glad to have you back. It's been a while since we had you on.
Yep.
Actually, a long time. But you and your colleagues from the fan club for the Seagulls, we've been talking about season so far. What's been surprising? We just wrapped up a bit of discussion about the sort of look ahead to next season, what needs to change, whether it's in transfers or other things. But why don't we just take a step back and let me ask you what your thoughts are at this stage in the season about the league overall, and then we'll get to Brighton.
Yeah, so I love that question because the Premier League for years has talked about itself and advertised itself as the best league in the world. This is the year they're actually showing that. And if you can have Arsenal and Man City out in front. You have Liverpool competing. The clustering is so tight when you look at the packs throughout the league. When you look at the Brentfords of the world who are getting no attention, and I don't really know why. You look at even like the resurgence at Everton and like no credit going there for the turnaround that they've made without big name signings, and they may have, and I'm just not close enough to it, but like very much a tough Northerner squad. The league is so deep and the quality of players are so deep. There's really very few easy matches to be played in the Premier League this year. And like, you look at how tight the packs are. I mean, there was one week a couple weeks ago where Brighton, if they won, they went 7th. If they lost, they went like 15th. That is competition. That is what people want. People want to see your team having a chance. You want to be fighting for Europe. You want to be fighting to avoid relegation. Well, you don't want to be fighting to avoid relegation, but as a neutral and as a fan, you like watching those matches and understand the implication. Like, this is one of the years the Premier League has delivered in ways it hasn't for years and years in the past. It's not boring, same old top 4, same old bottom 3.
That's a really interesting perspective. I'm just opening up the floor to everyone because I think, if I'm not mistaken, we've had a bit of a different perspective so far in the conversation. I can really appreciate that perspective, Jason, personally. Although as I mentioned to Paul and Tristan, I haven't been as engaged this season, mostly for personal reasons, but also Liverpool just hasn't been doing it for me, so I've been a bit dispirited. But Tristan, go ahead. What is that a spicy take of Jason's, or do you agree?
No, I think he's right, and that's part of what I was trying to communicate when I said, like, of the 20 teams in the league, only 2 are kind of bad right now, and you can see it when in the Champions League, right, where we had 6 Premier League teams make it to the last round, and then the ones that got knocked out recently were the smaller of the clubs, right? So PSG knocks out Chelsea, like PSG, unlimited money. There's no easy matchup. I guess Spurs is technically bigger than Atletico Madrid, but again, that club just seems to have quit on the games in front of them. And where you see kind of the bigger teams that are struggling a little bit, it's because of Europe and not having the deep rosters to be running out every 3 days. And I think at the end of the day, there's just too many games for the players that are having that kind of like challenge in front of them. Those guys are the same guys that get called up by their national team, so the international breaks aren't breaks. Like, if you're playing for a Premier League team in Europe, you have like 7-8 months of no breaks, and I think that's what's part of what it makes some of the stuff less fun to watch. Because when you have these chop and change lineups for the teams that can chop and change, you don't have the fluidity or the connections between. It's the first time that right back is connecting with that right wing in 3 months, and you're playing against teams that have, by and large, great athletes and good defensive instincts. You have good coaches at the bottom of the league that can still keep their teams organized. I think that's part of what makes it tough for some fan bases, I guess, to watch some of this stuff, is that it is a lot more defensive. I think a lot of the focus on corners, at least from Arsenal side, we've scored the same amount from corners for the last like 3 or 4 seasons in a row. So this isn't anything new for us. and it's not dramatically more than we have done it in the last couple of years.
Just got better at throw-ins.
We're not even that good at throw-ins. Like it's that. If anything, Ben White being hurt has made us faster at throw-ins, because that guy would take 20
You're
minutes.
welcome for him. You're welcome for him.
I love him. I will defend him against most Englishmen for longer.
Tristan,
than,
can I ask
than
you a question
necessary.
though? If it's okay, can I just double click into something you said? And like, number one, I love your comment about international, because I said one of the things that I think is hurting Brighton this year is young players need to learn how to step up to the Premier League, because it's just faster and more physical. But when you're doing that and flying off to Ghana or the Gambia or Argentina or places like that, it's just so hard for your body to do. But your comment around squad rotation is really interesting to me. And if, if it's too much to unpack now, like I'm good with that. We've spent a lot of time as Stateside Seagulls talking about squad rotation and this dual bit of you need to like ease your young players in or give them a chance. But also there are sometimes you need your older, more experienced, your tried and true on the pitch, even if they're not 100%. And it seems like if you throw somebody in when they're young, and they do well, it's a great, promising young star. You throw somebody who's young in, and Saka or somebody skins them, and all of a sudden they're not ready. The team's in shambles. They're kids, and it's such a mixed bag. So like you talk about squad rotation, like when you think about Arsenal, like for the kids coming up through the academy, how do you want to see them introduced? How do you want to see Arteta actually work players in?
Yeah. So let's have Tristan answer that, and then I want to get Paul's take on the last sort of segment, because you might have some different viewpoints here. Go ahead, Tristan.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's a good question, and you jumped in right as I was in my like Max Dowman kind of talk. We've had, so in the last 4 or 5 years, right? We had 17 and 18-year-old Saka come through. He only really came in because of injuries, and the squad was terrible at the time. So it was a lot easier for him to come in because he wasn't trying to replace current Saka. He was replacing, he came in at left back, and I don't even know who we had at left back at the time, but then like Nicolas Pepe was the right wing at the time, who's a decent player, but Saka was better, right? So that was a traditional kind of a traditional way of a young player coming in from the academy, breaking into the squad. He could beat out the senior player. We were a Europa League side, and I think even that was kind of generous. It was a little more difficult with Ethan Nwaneri and Miles Lewis-Skelly last year, who came in at 18 years old for the both of them. Miles was not on anybody's radar as far as I know. He just came and took a senior shirt and didn't put it down. But he came in at left back. We had, I think, 6 or 7 left backs at the beginning of the year, and they all got hurt such that we were down to the 18-year-old kid. And then he was the only left back on the roster for like 3 months. So then that becomes his way of earning an England shirt by the end of the year. Ethan, same thing. Saka was out for 5-6 months. And so and then Jesus was also out. So we had no senior players that could play. And so he plugged in at right wing at the time, and he played because he had to, and did well. Credit to him. Max is the first time that we've seen someone coming into a mostly settled squad. There's no real place for him to slot in. So he started with the Carabao games and the last 10 minutes of a comfortable game, but because the league is the league, outside of Leeds, we haven't had 3-4-0 score lines where you can bring in the 16-year-old, right, to get some minutes and see what Premier League, the speed and strength of those players are. So it's been interesting. At the same time, Miles has barely played this year, so he may have lost his World Cup spot, which has got to be tough for him. He's only 19 at this point. Ethan went out on loan to Marseille because he wasn't getting any playing time. So we had the 16-year-old kind of rock star that was, fizzing around the ether. Two 18-year-olds that had great seasons last year, but they only played because the people in front of them were injured. And again, when at that level of injury, you're losing the top 2, 3, 4 players at that position. So it's been tough. Arteta takes a lot of heat for not rotating enough. And part of it is because you do need that connective tissue between your center backs and, your fullbacks and your wingers. We've had a chop and change midfield all year for 2-3 years in a row now.
You sound like you're pretty miserable as a gunner with all
I
these
told you
problems.
it's not been an enjoyable season.
Life must be really tough.
Yeah, it's really tough.
Life must be really tough with a big squad like that.
Right. So it is very obviously
them.
champagne problems. Very obviously champagne problems.
All right. So on that note, let's Paul. I want your take quickly, but I also want to get back to Jason and drill into Brighton a bit more specifically, please.
I think, like you say, you get found out in the end. It's a war of attrition football. So I think what Ian said, the overall quality's better, but the depth of that quality differs across those teams. And, that middle pack of teams has, 16, 17 quality players, but not 30. And that catches up with you in the end with the amount of games that get played. And, I'm glad we're not in Europe. We couldn't have handled it. And I'm really glad that Forest and Tottenham are still in there having to fight that front as well as the Premiership. I think, it's nice that people do get an opportunity because squads are thin or injuries or whatever, because, people aren't brave enough to blood those young players maybe when they should be, but it can be great, but it can be a disaster as well. I mean, you look at Kinski, the Tottenham goalkeeper, his performance the other night. I don't think that guy will ever come back from that, right? And I think the best athletes in any sport are the ones with that strong between the ears, right? Not everybody is. However skillful, however good they are, you throw them in at the wrong time, you can destroy somebody.
Sure, but you've got to have that regardless. So if you're just waiting, maybe you can develop that, or if you go from 16 to 18, maybe you find it in that period of time. As we all know what we were like, you develop the smarts. But I think if you come in and you're 16, and we can all think back to the sort of the great players of our youth who were 16, 17, 18, and there was definitely people that would come in and just have the swagger and
fearless.
And fearless, and then they deserved it because they showed that they had it.
Mm-hmm.
Probably we've forgotten most of the players that just didn't make it, and we're there for a season.
Yeah. Well,
whatever.
The way the male brain is wired, that we are not very mature when we're 16 to 18. I have an 18-year-old athlete in the family, and it's that mental thing is going to be whether he makes it or not, and as you get older, you get better able to cope with things.
Definitely. All right,
but I think the larger clubs invest in the support systems for that, whereas some don't. And it's interesting to think about, like, if I was an 18-year-old kid whose whole life has been, I can run faster, I can dribble through people older than me. Like, people are just like, don't worry about learning how to get a job, worry about being a good footballer. And then I moved to a different country where it's nothing like my food, nothing like my culture,
weather,
very different type of environment. What do I do? Like, I'm used to having a mobile phone, but what do I do when I have to pay a gas bill or something like that? What do I do on a Sunday night after training when the folks who've grown up in the county are all huddling together and, like, I'm the outsider? Like, that's even extra hard. And then you pair on we paid 20 million, we paid 30 million, we paid 50 million quid for you. It becomes pretty cutthroat pretty quickly.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure.
I feel
results. It's a results business.
So let's move on. We're going to have some time to wrap up here, but I also want to get the Brighton view. So let's talk Seagulls for a minute. or for 5 minutes at least.
Do we have to?
Whatever you want.
Yeah.
I kid. Look, it's been a very choppy year on the South Coast. I mean, I think we've seen a little bit of what we've seen for the past few years, which is the club recruits well, the club can play some brilliant football, but we're often missing that last extra step of quality. And somebody said earlier, I thought quite well, you need to be 30 players deep. Our second and third level players, the players coming off the bench, just aren't there consistently. And that's been the challenge. And when you look at, the match we lost against Fulham, it was a silly foul from a tired player in the 97th minute that led full credit to was it Harry Wilson or whomever who bent that kick in. You look at us having dropped 2 points against Everton early in the year. The 93rd minute on goals or the 87th minute on goals, like if you take them out of that table, Seagulls are playing in Europe next year. So but when you have absent Milner and absent Waldini, all of these players who are Hinshelwood at 20, about to become a dad for the first time, dealing with Premier League first time coming back from injury. You have Jorginho Ruder trying to grow over the expectations of a season while still being only 20. Harry Howell getting on the pitch, Matoma having been injured, Ferdy coming back. You have such a young squad that you're trying to build through, and it's just very difficult to make happen. But that's what's so frustrating in Seagull land is you look at them and they can work the ball around the field beautifully. But when it comes to just banging it in, they just struggle so hard for it. And you feel like you're always just, almost there, but not quite there. And I look at the run-in and our run-in is Liverpool, Burnley, Tottenham, Chelsea, Wolves, Newcastle, Wolves, Leeds, and United. And I never thought I'd say that Tottenham away is our best chance to get points because we attack early. The first 10 minutes of a game, we are next world. We look like something off of FIFA or EA Sports or whatever it's called these days. Whoever has that trademark, I apologize for bastardizing it, but there you go. And Tottenham, the fans will turn on them. But you know what? I worry about a young squad going to Leeds. I worry about a young squad going away to St. James or whatever Newcastle's ownership may have renamed that place by the time they get there. Yes, we won 1-0 there, but those mentalities of those tough matches are very tough to win against when you have a young squad that likes to be artistic playing against a tight defensive northern team where the fans are right up on you, ready to, screaming for your children's lives. It's tough.
So, all good points. Let's talk about the. I don't know if anybody wants to jump in and comment on that, but I think we're all kind of smiling and nodding apathetically. But what's coming, next season for you? What do you think you need to do to kind of get to where you want?
I
to be?
think the challenge is going to be so there's two camps of fandom which we have to work through, which informs where you go going forward. And bear with me for a second while I do one of my things for a second. There's the group which is we're celebrating the 125th anniversary of Brighton of Albion's going to celebrate its 125th anniversary next season. That is massive for the club. And if you think about the first 118 years, absent an FA Cup final in 1983, the club's history isn't that spectacular. So when you think about what's been accomplished over the past couple of years, there's a question of, are you living in the golden age of Brighton fandom? But there's also people who come to the party since 2017, who worship at the temple of Roberto De Zerbi, who really don't know what to do going forward and think that this is baseline. And if I was an Arsenal fan, if I was a Man United fan who came on in the 90s, if I was a Chelsea fan when Abramovich was spending the money, I might have felt that same way. So I think there's a real division right now of what do we do and how do we get out of this? And what do you how do you think about it? So it's going to be very interesting because the biggest impact of Mark Gahey going to Man City is that Liverpool is going to double down on getting Jean-Paul Van Heck. And we're going to have a real time holding on to a 25, 26-year-old player who's starting for Netherlands, who wants to be in a World Cup squad and wants to be a regular every there. Virgil has said he's a future captain there. We're going to have a hard time holding on to him, in who gets slagged off in all sorts of ways by the Brighton fans. You need to retain them. So how do you strike this balance of going out and investing in young players? How do you also take players like the two young Greek strikers we have and develop them, but also not rely on this model of selling off your players? We joke about Chelsea. Like, I'm happy to see Pedro do well. I'm happy to see Caicedo do well. Do I like the way some of them handled their exits? No. Do I wish them evil? No. They're not Croydon players. Those people I wish evil on. But like, it's going to be an interesting time around what the budget looks like, the retention of existing players. And just like Tony Bloom bought 40% of Hearts or 30% of Hearts and has put together a coalition there, is it time for Brighton to have a coalition ownership?
I'd like everyone's thoughts on that, but I have a question that probably isn't one for this this session because it's maybe too big a question, and we should just schedule one. Just focused on Brighton with Paul and others. But is the model that's got you here into the golden age, if that's what you're in, fit for purpose for whatever's next? We've talked a lot about this model that has been developing in clubs like Brentford and elsewhere. Uh, maybe we're kind of seeing the maturation, the natural kind of evolution. So feel free to chime in on that.
Well,
But we won't exhaust
I
that
think
today.
I
Go
think
ahead.
the difference between my club and Ian's club is that we're one of the few that have the fan base. We're going to have a 60,000 seater stadium. It's all financial at the end of the day. Whatever your model, you need more dollars, more pounds to spend on your squad to really crack into that top six. And I'm not sure Brighton have that hope. Whereas a Leeds fan, I do, because we've been there and won, been a big club, and we're a big city that isn't competing for fans, and we have that tradition and everything else. I feel like I have that optimism that we don't have to be a selling club. We're a big enough club to actually make it. It's probably going to take another 2 or 3 years of playing on the model, but then financially, we have that capability to break through that ceiling, I think.
Makes sense. Tristan, what are your thoughts?
What are my thoughts about the Brighton, Brentford, Bournemouth, Leeds
Yeah, just
sorts of clubs and their ambitions?
either Brighton or that model. Just kind of as a concluding thought on what Jason's been saying.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting question. Given the financial dominance of the Premier League vis-a-vis the European leagues, I think like a Brentford, a Brighton, they can win the Conference League, they can win the Europa, they can win the FA Cup if the draw goes for them, and whatever, City and Liverpool and Arsenal and Chelsea all knock each other out. Though I mean, Brighton's beaten us. They could win those levels of things. I think what's tough is you'd have to thread the needle of having 15, 16, senior level players that are maybe right before you're going to end up selling them, and 3, 4, 5 kids right underneath them. The 19-year-old kid that would have otherwise been loaned to somebody that you keep for that year because you have, the secondary or tertiary European tournaments to play for. Because it is that murderous kind of attritional thing. I think is Brighton always going to be a selling club? Probably, because you can buy Caicedo for $7 million and sell him for $120 million, and that buys you the next 4 guys.
Yeah, that's been the theory, but I think it's an open question. Maybe a good place for us to just close on is, what does the future look like? We can't just assume that we just talk about which players to sell next, in the summer and next season. It will be when Brighton finally shines. and gets to the sort of top 5 or top 6. But uh, I think there's in my mind, naively maybe, a question of is there a future where that model just evolves in some way, and they can just uh, find a path
Yeah. Uh,
to be up there competing with Leeds for its spot at the top. So, any final thoughts? I think we should wrap it there. I've just finished my Guinness.
Yeah. I'm going to get out of here and go and get Guinness myself here quickly.
Sounds good. Well, thanks to all three of you for joining. It's been a really interesting conversation. I think we must do this more often. We must get Brighton back on. It's been too long since we had a proper chat about Brighton in depth. Thanks everyone for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.
I got
Thanks,
a
fellas.
quick
Nice to
question.
meet you.
Thank you much.
Likewise.
Good luck this
likewise.
weekend.
Ian, a quick question for you, not super important, but do we know who the fan is that is always wearing the seagull mask in your
Jason.
supporter section? Like, is that do
Yes.
we know who that guy is? Because he or
Yes.
she has brought me such joy. I love
Yes, people
seeing
know he is.
the gifts or whatever that come out of him. So anyway, I didn't know if he was known to the fan base or not.
Very good. All right. Well, thanks everyone. See you next time.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of Don't Know Much About Football, the podcast for all fans, new and seasoned, who want to grow the sport and learn together.
If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, and support us on Patreon. Your feedback and support grow our community.
If you're a part of a club, league, or fan community and want to be featured, reach out via our social media or our website at don'tknowmuchaboutfootball.com.
Thanks for joining our journey. Tune in next week for more passionate football stories.
Until then, keep the football spirit alive.